Thank you guys for being on. Those of you who are patient enough to stay on with us. Those of you who are with us for the first time, if it's one time of many, et cetera, et cetera. We're continuing to talk about the family structure piece. At some point, I'd love to go into Barashit and Genesis. It's something that's on my mind for us to go back into that, Genesis 1 and 2. But this family structure piece came and it hit hard, and you guys started asking questions. And even I got some interesting, things sent via email or text. And even seeing a lot of people going through a lot of different things and situations, it made me say, okay, I hear you, yeah. I hear you, Rabak Hakudash. It's time for us to get into this. Hey, how you doing? And let me say hello to everybody by name. And it's Tamara, Lee, Dim Skins. That's is that Austin, I believe. Hello, we got Big Bear. I don't know if that's the Big Bear I'm thinking it is, but thanks for being on. Brother Clem, Sister Cynthia, Ali, Sister Kendra, praying for you. Try to reach out later. Hello, Sister Helen, Mo Desire. If I miss your name, please forgive me. Just Banks, Sister Sharice. All righty, everybody. Nay, how you doing? And it's been lovely meeting everybody, by the way, too. Krypton, how you doing? Hello, Danny. Thanks for being part of the community. Hello, Denise, listening in. Everybody on YouTube as well. Thank you. How you doing? How you doing, Dawn? Big Brother Thomas, how you doing? Definitely a black girl. Hello. We're doing well. Thank you for asking. And LaShondra, oh, okay. Hey, Memphis in the house. We just came through there. Like, what? I can't remember the day. Was it Saturday or Sunday? One of those. Saturday possibly. And I mean, when I said we came through there, we literally came through there. We stopped. It said hello to like a couple people, but we didn't even stop and stay. We just literally came through there. But LaShondra, okay. How you doing, Sister Rhonda? How you doing, Lori? Hello to everybody. Shalom, shalom, peace. It was Saturday. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so here we are, and we're back today, and we're getting ready to go into the family structure. And for those of you who are not used to being with us, we're on every rising, 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. We're on every evening or weekday evening, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern, except for Wednesdays. Wednesdays is our day off. How you doing, Boss Treatment? Thanks for being on. So today we're going back to the family structure, and today the motif, if you will, is that the family structure, for us, the family structure, it is our greatest weapon. Our love is our greatest weapon. Our love is our greatest weapon. Right? We give all honor and praise to the Most High. Again, I give all honor and praise to him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, as well. Right? Our love is the greatest weapon. You got to realize that if you're going to fight a battle and you don't have your greatest weapon, you're not going to do that well. Somebody missed that, but that's okay. I'm going to say it again. How you doing, Ladybug? Our love is the greatest weapon. Thanks for the love. Appreciate it. Our love is our greatest weapon. Our family structure is the greatest weapon. If you're going to go to battle against anybody and you're going to use your greatest, and you're not going to use your greatest weapon, you are probably going to lose. Come on, like, if you're going to go, can I say that again? If you're going to go into battle and you're not going to use your greatest weapon, more than likely, you are going to use. Shalom, Sister Kendra, how you doing? Right? Our love is our greatest weapon. Your family structure is the greatest weapon. The action, love is an action so powerful that it brings about description. Love is also a description so powerful that brings about manifestation. We'll get more into that, but that's our working definition for love, or ahabach in our culture and in our language, right? Our love, ahabach, our actions towards one another, our family structure, and how we interact with one another generation to generation is the greatest weapon against you. right? It's the greatest weapon that somebody can use against you is your love or lack thereof. But if you're going to if you're going to be in the system, your love. That's why the Bible says, Yahweh Achabach, or what we say, God is love. Your love is the greatest action towards you. Matter of fact, for those of you who use fire and brimstone, which I don't mind hell teaching and stuff like that, but in hell preaching and stuff. But for those of us that would use fire and brimstone and talk about revelation and do all this stuff, which revelation literally means revelation, to live inside of that which we're rejoicing in. So if we're going to rejoice in the victory, why not use Revelation to talk about our family structure and the greatest weapon? Revelation chapter 7 tells us that our family must be sealed before the human family must be sealed. It's the greatest weapon. Revelation chapter 2 tells you that you think that you're poor, but really you are rich. The reality in Revelation chapter 2 verse 9 is that there are people that say that they are you, and they're not. You're acting like you're poor, but really you are rich. You're focusing on the tribulation, but if you would just endure, it says that when you overcome, there's a crown, there's a victorious moment, if you want to use that word, waiting on you, right? But your love is the greatest weapon. If you don't believe me though, let's focus on this verse today. I've said it many times. I'll talk about it on our Revelation Road. It's in our series on YouTube called Revelation Revisited, but let's take some time out. Thank you, Cash. Appreciate it. But saying back at you, hopefully you were extremely strong in everything that you touch and do. Right? So our love is our greatest weapon. And people will use this Bible all day, every day, and talk about that they love the Bible and they love the Lord and and this and that or whatever. But once again, we say read your Bible because it'll bless you. Read it correctly with the proper mindset behind it. And how you doing, Minister Shante? So here we go. Our love is the greatest weapon. Y'all caught that? Hopefully I've said that enough times that you get what I'm saying. Our love is what? The greatest weapon. Not okay to use as a weapon, it's the greatest weapon. Where you see that at? Where can you get that at? Well, you don't know the culture behind the words in the book. So allow me to show you the culture with the proper Afrocentric thought process, because yes, Ham and Shem married into each other, a certain thought process that we have when we come into each other. Our love is the greatest weapon. It comes in Revelation chapter 3, verse 9. How you doing, Tree by Living Water? So you've heard people speak on this, preach on this, teach on this, but they don't teach it in this manner because they don't want you to believe that your family structure is important. Do whatever you want. Be into whatever you want. Learn about everybody else's culture. Don't know your own language. Don't worry about talking about things. Hey, why are you always talking about racism? Racism is only there because you speak it. If you speak a thing, then it's going to be there. As if when I got up this morning, rising, and I just, right, or when I got up, matter of fact, as if when I came out of my mother's womb, that, hey, you know what? The reason why everything is against me, so to speak, is because I just so happen to be born and automatically be born with the thought that says white people are bad people. And by the way, I don't believe that all white people are bad people. Let's just put that out there in case somebody decides to start there, right? But they don't want you to believe that our love, and I didn't say everybody's love. I didn't just say love. I said our love, our culture's way of love is the greatest weapon. Because somebody will try to confuse that. Love is our love. Because we're a peculiar people. We don't love the way everybody else does. Our love, because we're a chosen generation. We choose to love in a different way. Our love, you hear what I'm saying? Our love, because we are royal priesthood. We're royalty. We have royal love because we're priests when it comes to love. And in our society, there's no separate word for royal and priest. If you're royal, you have to be a priest. If you're a priest, you got to be royal. That's why David and Solomon were writing all them bars in the book of Psalms. Because you can't be royalty and not be a priest. You can't be a priest and not be royalty. That's why Saul had to get kicked out. So our love, right? We're a holy nation, one nation. We deserve and demand that we be in one as one unit. How you doing, Miss Mac? Our love. So what does it say about our love? Revelation chapter 3, verse 9. Our love. I can't speak on everybody else's love. I can't speak on the love that they're trying to show you on Netflix. I can't speak on the Netflix and chill stuff. I'm talking about our love, how we get down. Our love, okay? In our love, it says this. It says, behold, I will make them of the synagogue of the Satan, which say they are of the or Hebrews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to worship before thy feet. That means that they'll learn from you. And it says this is where it ends. And to know that I have loved thee. I have what? I have loved thee. What is the thing that's going to cause people to sit at your feet? Our love, and our love for the Most High. And it's not because we first loved him, it's because he first loved us. Our love is right there. We don't read it that way, but let's read it what it says. You say you believe in this? Okay, if you believe in this, read your Bible. It'll bless you. It says, what's going to be the turning point? Our love. What do we believe was done on the cross? You just think about blood. Our love. His blood was a manifestation. The water that came out when they pierced his side was a manifestation. Him not saying a mumbling word was a manifestation. But that's not the key. The key is it was our love. He loved us. And then what does he turn around before he even does that? John chapter 13, verse 34 and 35. He says, I give you a new commandment. Right? He said, and this new commandment is going to be what causes people to know that you are my disciples. In other words, that you're disciplined in what I'm disciplined in the environment, in the culture, in the family that I'm in. He said, it's not going to be based on how many people show up to your live session, or how many people come to your building on Sunday, or how many people speak in tongues, or how many people, and I'm not against speaking in tongues, I'm just saying the stuff that we look at. It's not going to be what dress you wear, or what kind of clothing you wear, or how many times your skirts are fitted, even though I believe in making sure that the skirts are correct and all that, or how many times you're supposed to make sure your tassels are there, or how many. He said what people are going to be looking for is the way that you love one another. Our love is going to cause people to sit down at your feet and say, if your family can act like that, if your marriage can be like that, then what's going on? And they're not fighting. See, I need you to comprehend. One of the reasons you're getting your head beat in, yesterday, Moors, African Americans, black folk, diaspora, Africans, Alkebulan, women, men, masculinity. All the reason why they beating your head in for everything is because you don't realize that they're fighting against your family structure while building up their own. That's a word for somebody right there. They're fighting against your family structure and simultaneously building up their own. They're telling you to get rid of your love and then telling you to bow down to theirs. How you doing, Minister Nice? They're telling you to bow down to their family structure. Look, y'all know all about, I don't know about them no more, all right? I used to try to keep up with them a little bit, but like, y'all know about the Brad Pitts and the Jennifer Aniston's and the Angelina Jolies and the Johnny Depps and the, what's in there, Amber Heards and the this and the that and all that stuff. Y'all know about all them. But we got issues when it comes to our love. Our love. We looking for people that don't stay together to tell us how to stay together. That's the example they give you. Meanwhile, though, the people that are there. See what? Let me show you how powerful this is. How you doing, Banks, Teflon Banks? How you doing? Yeah, tear us down and build them up. Let me show you something. You know the difference between when we had strong leadership and now that we said we don't have strong leadership anymore? You know one of the biggest things that we don't think about? Because we always talking about, well, you know, black men now, they're blah, blah, blah. Black women now, they don't do and this and that, right? We go back and forth. You want to know one of the biggest things that we had back in the day? Our leaders were married, had children, and presented their marriages, not necessarily made it public, everything public, but it was, you could see their marriage on display. How you doing, C-Jam? Thanks for being part of the community. Like that was a necessity because we needed to see family structure first. When the president, right, they didn't used to always do it as publicly, but ever since JFK, basically, every president that you see, when they're running, when they're doing certain things, guess what you're gonna see? You're gonna see their family. Even if it's not thrown in your face all the time, but you're gonna see their family. If their children mess up, you're gonna see their children mess up. And we're gonna wonder, well, okay, your child messed up, how you gonna handle it? the marriage, the family, the husband-wife dynamic, it was always on display. Malcolm X, one of the things that makes me love Malcolm more than a whole bunch of other brothers that ever existed is because he loved his family. He loved his family, very clear. His wife could never remarry, and his wife did everything that she could, but she dealt with a whole bunch of stuff for the rest of her life because she was married to that particular man, that particular brother. Also, though, that particular brother, he wasn't able to stay there in her life. And when somebody holds you down like that to that level to where, I'm not saying you shouldn't ever be able to move on without that person, but I'm saying you could see the connection there. Man, like that's something that before all the other stuff we talk about with Malcolm X, I love to talk about his family. The family structure was extremely important. The main reason for him finally saying, I'm going to leave the Nation of Islam, was because he saw that his leader, who he still had love for, but he couldn't stay under the leadership. Why? Because his leader wasn't keeping up a family. His leader had too many side chicks. His leader was doing a whole bunch of stuff that we would even say nowadays you would call it pedophilia. He said, I got to get away from it. Not trying to come down on anybody's religious belief. I'm just telling you why Malcolm, at least why he says, if you want to say it that way, why he says he had to leave. And he said it publicly. At first, he didn't want to say it publicly at all until they were trying to come against him and even tried to start making him look bad as a terrible person, and even started trying to attack his family and tried to kill his family. Once he saw that, he said, you know what? I'm going to the very thing that you're trying to use against me, because that's what they do. They weaponize the family or the lack thereof. So they tried to weaponize his family against him. He said, oh no, I'm gonna tell the truth about how you guys get down with family. And that's one of the biggest things that they use. When they killed Malcolm X, when they killed Martin Luther King Jr. from the 70s on, the United States Corporation has made a consistent effort to kill off family, to make sure that we don't want certain people in order. They made it a particular thing. They're the enemy hates family, right? They have made it a point to weaponize the strongest asset. Yes, indeed. How you doing, Sister Deborah? Right? Leadership, not behaving in righteousness, giving false, incorrect examples. Exactly. All these things come together, but the United States Corporation, in particular, the FBI, the CIA, in particular, have done everything they can to attack the family dynamic to where people think that fathers are a bad thing. Masculinity is a terrible thing, right? Like that can't come into play until you have to make a worldwide stance against family. Meanwhile, though, when it comes to other people's diaspora, of course they should have family. Uh-oh. Y'all know I ain't lying, right? Only in our diaspora do we even argue about is family necessary. Only in our diaspora do we even argue about whether family is necessary. Only we do that. Because of that Willie Lynch mentality. They took the body, they took the mind, but they kept our bodies. And now some of us are taking our mind back, and part of our mind is family. Right? Like you even got people trying to tell you that the Willie Lynch letter is a lie. Because the Willie Lynch letter says what? Family, attack the family. All the stuff that you're thinking about in the Willie Lynch letter, you're not thinking about, you're not realizing when it says age. Age is talking about your family, the older against the younger. When it says male against female, that's male against female. That's what we still do. This is stuff we still doing today. When it says colorism, in your own family. You can be in your own immediate family, light skin versus dark skin. You said people frown at your dad when you go out. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. Your love is the greatest weapon. You said your families are kept tenuous and the system weakens our nation. Yeah. The dynamic, when you go out, right? Your family is the greatest weapon. You deal with that a lot too, Sister Nakia? Sister May said you protect the family at all costs. Yeah, indeed, CJ. Like a lot of people don't want, or is it CJ? I said CJ. Is it CJ, baby? I might be off. But see what I'm saying? Your family is the greatest weapon. Ronald Reagan, of course, killed your family and put crack in your family's cities on purpose to be able to fight his war. All right, it is CJ. Okay. So he put your family. He knew he needed to fight a war. He also knew he needed to keep you down, right? He told Richard Nixon that on a phone call while he was on his way being groomed to become the president. Same Richard Nixon that didn't like the fact that your family was taking over white folk and that white Woodstock cats, were starting to get married and have sex and have babies with black folk, right? And he didn't like that. So he called y'all weed smoking stuff, whatever. That same person who called that Richard Nixon floods your community. Floods your community with what? With something that kills the family. You're thinking about just the fact that it kills your body. If it kills the body, it kills the family. If it kills the body, it kills the family. Once again, what did Willie Lynch say? We take the body. I'm sorry. We take the mind, right? We take your culture. We take the way you think, but we keep your body. That's why a lot of black folk know about breeding, but they don't know about marriage. Because sex is marriage, marriage is sex. You know about breeding. You know about getting it in. You know about not being tender. You want to be, slapped and choked and all this different stuff. Whatever. Why do people even get into that? You know why we get into that stuff? Because we know about breeding. When you're bred, when you watch your, remember they reversed the roles. And even if you don't believe the Willie Lynch letter is real, I tell this to people all the time. Even if you don't believe it's real, you still better study it because everything it says in there is real talk. So even if you think somebody made it up, the person who made it up was trying to tell you this is what they did. I believe it to be real. Nevertheless, even if you don't believe it to be real, the people who is talking about that did those things, they did that to you. I'm serious. People like slapped and being choked, call them the B word, call them an N word, do all this stuff. Tell me you like this N word, DIC, you know what, and all this stuff like that. I mean, people get into some wild stuff. Why is that? Because when you watch, that's a generational curse thing. We watched our grandmothers, great-great-grandmothers, great-great-great-great-grandmothers, and all the way down be treated like that, even past what we call chattel slavery, which still existed anyways, not just in prisons, but actually still existed in the South, bare minimum to the 70s, even though we know that there's people that got caught up and got arrested this year for still having brown and black people working for them on plantations. But when you watch generations do that to your mama, and as much as we don't like to admit it, when they did it to your daddy too, of course you think that that's marriage, but you don't know that sex is marriage, marriage is sex. Because the people who enslaved you, they did whatever they wanted to. You don't know that feminism started when they started saying, wait a minute, I'm bathing in the blood money with you, I'm bowing down to whatever you say, I'm being faithful to you, and yet you out here sleeping around with all these babies, to the point to where they started killing the babies. White women. Right, not all white women, but white women that were what? That were married to slave owners, right? They started killing off the babies because they were tired of seeing babies that were half white, half black, and looked like their husband. And they had to create laws to ensure that they could protect those white wives who were out there killing. Well, they didn't even think of us as black people, but we'd say that they killing black people. They did that because. She did that because what? The family dynamic was at stake. And right, so she thought she was protecting her family structure. And meanwhile, right, they made the law because they realized if we start locking up these mothers, then what happens to the family? We got to keep the family together. So they didn't consider your family was problematic because now your family starts seeping into their family. You're supposed to have a piece of what they have. Oh, we got to do something about that. Let's make this law that says, hey, it's okay to kill them all. We won't mention why we're killing them all, but it's okay to kill them all. Family structure is the greatest weapon against what's going on today. You said many police still behave that way, yeah. And that's why women, whether white, black, whatever, you be a woman and you start moving up that corporate ladder. See if you don't start getting more flack than everybody else. You know why? Because for them, a woman being treated on any level close to a man in their culture is terrible. It messes up what their family structure. They have every culture, every country you go to has a particular family structure. How you doing? What is it? The girl Ken? Thanks for being on. Appreciate it. Thanks for being part of the community. Every structure. Y'all hear what I'm saying? How you doing, Queen Shepherd? Every structure, every culture that you go to, it has a family structure. It's a police officer, policy overseers protecting the plantation. Yeah. And by the right, every place you go to, they have it. You said, did I hear about the whole police force? You forgot where that they fired because of what the chief said. Oh, you're talking about in Detroit? I don't know if that's what you're talking about. There's so much stuff it's hard to even keep up with, sis, for real, for real. I'm just being honest with you. You know? But yeah, you know, like this thing is set up where every place you go to, there's a particular structure. This is what it is. So that's why I didn't say their love or just love. I said our love. How you doing, Michael? Our love is the ultimate weapon. Our love is the ultimate weapon. When I started loving myself 100%, because I've loved myself 20% of times in my life. I was a token at one point. I went in the military, tried to love myself, but you can't really love yourself in the military. I was like starting to say these things, but I couldn't really do it. I was at pulpits, but I couldn't really preach everything because I was like, well, what if they don't let me come up and talk again? All of a sudden, when I finally said, you know, I'm gonna just love my community. The love for my community is what stopped the stagnancy in my life. You said they need to stop making us the enemy. Well, watch this. Here's the deal. We need to stop making us the enemy. I'm with you. But they're going to make you the enemy because that's what this system is founded upon. You say, united we fall, divided we stand, separate the man from his foundation family, and he falls. Generations too, yeah. Thank you, Ed. We appreciate that, right? You said, when you love thyself equals ability to truly love all, right? Well, loving thyself, right? So love yourself. And love your family. Love yourself and love your family. How you doing, Sister Mary? Somebody will always ultimately come on. It hasn't happened today. I'm just saying in general. Somebody will ultimately come on and say something along the lines of, "Man, don't get married. It's one of those things that's just an establishment thing. They're trying to take all your money. Da 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 da." That's because you're getting married under the state. You're trying to deal with their love. And then when that same state messes up your marriage and takes a piece of everything, then you're trying to figure out what happened to your family. Why not get married under your own law? What you mean by that? You can write up your own marriage contract. If I marry folk, I marry them under their own contract. You're allowed to do that. It is totally legal. And you can put in your contract what you need and all that stuff. Then we put with it a marriage constitution. Why do we do that? Because you need to have something that says, when you guys get married, right? Not just common law, before common law, right? It can become common law if you live with people that do the same thing you do. So technically you can kind of say it's common law because a lot of people do it, but you don't live close enough to them, so we can't really make it common law, if you get my drift, right? But basically, you could write up your own marriage contract, write up whatever penalties and all that stuff there, but you write up a marriage constitution too. So that way, when you guys get into things, you have agreed on paper that says, yo, we already said when we get in an argument, this is my love language, this is your love language. We already have it written out that says that if we start beefing over something, hey, or you have something you're beefing with me and I don't know, please make me aware that you're frustrated. Ask me if I'm in a position to talk. And if I say no, I have to get back to you within a certain amount of time and make sure that I'm truly engaged, right? So that when you come before anybody talking about your contract and you bring that before a judge talking about y'all want to split, the judge has to act as the trustee. The judge is just simply going to look at your contract that y'all wrote up, and he's going to go by he's going to start asking different questions. He's going to start, or she are going to start asking questions such as, well, it says here in the contract that you guys are supposed to make sure that she's doing this many times. It says that you should allow him to watch this many times. It says that you guys should be doing this with the children. Like, it's a different mindset. But you don't have that mindset, you don't have the context because you don't think that your love is the standard, right? Jumping the broom is not the standard. Jumping the broom is something that we did because we had to. It was a symbol of, hey, we can be out here, everybody can be acting this, that, whatever, all the stuff or whatever. As soon as the master or the overseer turns their back for a little bit, we can go ahead, go in the little corner, you can jump over the broom, everybody can clap and silently celebrate and everything, and then go back and act like nothing else happened. We just keep on sweeping. You can jump the broom. But that's not normalcy. But we still got a lot of jump the broom type mentality. We lift up jumping the broom, and I'm not saying it's wrong to acknowledge that it existed, but we lift it up like it's an actual ceremony. It's what you had to do, right? To sweep under the rug, to cover up some things. Because your love, even back then, was something that was problematic. Your love is a problem. That's why somebody singing about love will never make as much money, especially nowadays. Unless you, that's why, like, watch this. Uh, peep game, stay with me on this, right? Yes, some people still do it and say, well, we had a broom present, but we weren't going to jump over it, right? We had a broom present, but we weren't going to jump over it. So we acknowledged that it existed in our culture and in our generations, but we weren't going to jump over it. But here's the deal, right? Watch this. You will never see a song that's talking about actual marriage make it anywhere near a song that talks about sex only, like not even sex breeding, right? There's a difference between sex and breeding. You'll never see a song that's talking about marriage and honoring it, honoring love, actual love. But you'll see a lot about breeding, and you'll see a lot of songs about killing. Killing each other makes more money than loving each other in this system. You said, but singing about not needing love makes millions. Yeah. Even saying I don't need love. I don't want nobody. I don't need nobody. I got 99 problems, but ain't one. That same person trying to make sure that he marries the one that everybody wants, but he's going to tell you, I got 99 problems, but ain't one. How you doing, Sister Stella? Right? Like, that's real talk. Like, you got it. I'm telling you, your love, thank you, Minister Lashante. Like, your love is the greatest weapon. Y'all hear what I'm saying? Your love is the greatest weapon that's out. Yeah, that's true, Bounty. Very true. Your love is the greatest weapon. And once again, Revelation 3:9, it's our love that even says that it's going to make people come down and worship before thy feet. Now, they shouldn't worship us. How you doing, Kelly? They shouldn't be worshiping us, right? They shouldn't be worshiping us, but they should be worshiping, and it says they'll come at your feet. Why are they coming to your feet? They're coming to your feet because that's a symbol of learning from you. And it says that they're going to do so because Revelation 3:9 ends by saying that he has always loved you. Yahweh, Yashvai, Ravak HaKodash, Elohim, they have always loved you. Part of the problem is your love has even been based on God and not Elohim. Uh-oh. I know I'm going to lose somebody there, right? I know I'm going to lose somebody there. But your love has never been based on God. It's been based on Elohim. No wonder you can't have relationship work because you've been trying to put God in it. But God is a Germanic deity. You've been trying to put a Netzer in it, Kemetic gods. But they were already defeated. If you know about those, we've talked about this already, or especially Patreon members, y'all remember we did a whole thing on the 10 plagues and how the 10 plagues were actually attacks on 10 different Netzers, or what you would try to call spirits or gods. Right? You put in God we trust on your money, but God is not Elohim, and Elohim is not God. Hallelujah. You need to get all this upside your head today. That could be the problem in your relationship, is that you keep putting other cultures in, but it's not their love that is the weapon against them. That's why they weaponize their love against you, and they tell you that if you try to use your love, that you're wrong and you don't fit in and you're not great enough and you're not cultured enough and you don't understand enough about their environment and you'll never be this and that or whatever, because they keep trying to tell you that it's their love. But their love is the problem, because their love is anti-you. Our love that's for us also is not anti-them, but it blesses them because it causes them to come and learn at your feet and realize, because it's always that you've been loved. And then we can shift to Revelation chapter 7 that says that the love for you and your love for each other and your being sealed is what allows everybody else in the world to come into being. I wish it was something that I could go ahead, but I'm trying to tell you, that's pretty close. I can't pronounce the name. Fanatic at the end, Gun Fanatic, okay. Is it Chai Gun Fanatic or Shy Gun Fanatic? Right? That was close enough. So it's your love that is the weapon. Right? It's your love that is the weapon. Right? Your love is the truth. And his love for you is the truth. And the second that we get that context, the world changes. That is why, see, look, I'm not the one that made this up. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of questions. I know I'm not answering no more. I'm trying to follow them. And I'm talking about a lot of different things. So please forgive me if I don't answer it right away. You said, what's a great book to learn about stuff? I mean, first of all, culture. Doesn't matter what book you get, learn culture. Culture is something that you're not going to read. You read about it, but you're not going to read it. You got to live culture. People don't like it when I give that answer, but that's real. Like I'm a jelly, or some people call me a griot, some people call me a jelly griot, right? So in West Africa, it's on me and people like me to make sure that we give the culture, whether it be by written documentation, music, dance, expressed art on paintings, spoken stories, whatever the case might be, right? And that's the love for our culture. So I'm supposed to make sure. They even say when the jelly griot dies, it's akin to a library being burned down. Like that's the love that we're supposed to have as jelly griots for our people. The action, right? Because love is an action so powerful. It brings about description. It's also a description so powerful that it brings about manifestation. So by this will men know that you are my disciples, that you're disciplined in this culture. By what? By the way you love one another. See, that's why you got black millionaires. They'll try to tell you we have more black millionaires than we ever had, but the reality is look at a percentage. Don't look at it as far as millionaire, because millionaire is just based off of now, inflation. So look at it this way. At the end of 1865, at the end of what they call the Civil War, we own less than 0.5% as a diaspora. We own less than 0.5% of the wealth of the United States of America. If you look at now, today, 2022, we still own less than 0.5% of the wealth of the United States of America. So when we say stuff like even in slavery or even in times of Reconstruction and all that stuff, when we say that family dynamic was stronger, we're not saying that it was stronger because they had more, like there were more people in Congress in the late 1800s that were black than there are today, right? Like there were more people that played baseball in the 1950s and 60s and were making generational wealth in that than our people do today. Like we have this weird thing that says that like integration and everything and all that things have just gotten better and better and better. Things are about the same or worse. We just think that because we wearing new outfits or because people have phones. Like people had phones in the 60s for their time, right? People had phones in the 60s. It didn't mean that just because you had a phone, like you could have a nice house and the police might still come in or the KKK might still string you up. Yeah, and it keeps getting stolen by other people. And it's not even that it gets stolen all the time, it's around. A lot of times we give people the stuff, right? But we have to recognize, like we keep thinking that stuff has changed. It's about the same. One of the things that's worse is that we don't live together. I don't believe in segregation, but I believe that we should have communities that look like us. And then when we decide to go into other communities, we go there for a hot second. What you do is you live in somebody else's community. You don't own anything. In segregation, you were allowed to own. Did you know that? Nowadays, you can't own as much because redlining happened. But redlining happens now on territories that they want you in, and it gets worse and worse and worse. You got more black people squished into places than you had back in the day. Right? It's our love that's the greatest thing. Our love. Me loving the body of a sister is problematic if they're trying to tell you that Marilyn Monroe is a standard for beauty. If they're trying to tell you that even on cartoons growing up, that Jessica Rabbit and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, even though that was nothing but them over-exaggerating. Sometimes some of our women, they ain't even an over-exaggeration, but them over-exaggerating the sister's body and then putting the white face on her. You say, how can you live in such a community? Well, right now we're doing fundraisers and people giving donations. We're trying to get some land. I'm still praying for October. We didn't get enough help. We started last October raising, but our goal is to try and have land ASAP. And once we get it, we're going to start tilling it and putting food on there first and setting it up. We're going to make sure that we got our water and stuff together on there as well. We're looking at solar energy. So there's a lot of stuff, and that's just the start. The goal is eventually to flip that over and over again. If you were to go to our website, so if you look on, since you're on TikTok, if you go to the TikTok page, Kofi_43, or even our other one, Kofi_42, and look up the link tree on there. Click on that. You can go to the website. Go on there, see what it's about. If it's something that you like, once you become part of it or whatever, we have a password set up to where you can get even more information. Right? You said you got land. Come on. Well, that's cool. As long as we all like-minded. As long as we're all like-minded. Like people are allowing us to use land to try and start growing things and stuff on. So, even that is a help and a blessing, right? But what I'm saying is that it's got to be like-minded, and it's got to be a thing of loving yourself. There's nothing wrong with anybody loving themselves. Like I say this all the time. People don't get mad about colonization. Don't get mad about gentrification. Get mad about what the colonizer did to others. Get mad about what the person who gentrifies did to others. Don't be upset just about colonization. You hear what I'm saying? Don't be upset about colonization. You're supposed to colonize. Problem is that they told you to stop colonizing. You come from kings and queens. You're supposed to colonize. Your love for your community means that your community should look like you. Therefore, you're supposed to gentrify. You said, how can you truly love others fully if you don't love yourself thoroughly? Well, by loving others and loving yourself, that comes simultaneously. It's not a first, right? At least in our culture. Now, if somebody else's culture is but that's what, I'm not lifting up other cultures today. No offense to anybody, but I'm just telling you, culturally speaking, if you're going to talk about our culture, real talk, we're getting back to ourselves. In ourselves, the way that you love your community and your family is the way you love yourself, because there is no community without an individual, and there is no individual without a community. If that comes off as offensive, right, then so be it. Because your community is going to look like you. That's why, look, I don't have a problem with it. Once again, how you doing, Takwa? Yeah, right. Well, I agree with that, right? But like, let's keep it 100. How do you know that what we could now call modern gentrification? No problem, Shante. How do you know that modern gentrification is happening? Because we think of only gentrification as being white folk are coming, even though it could be Chinese, it could be little Havana, it could be little Cuba, et cetera, et cetera. You said you can't join our community because it doesn't look like you. No, I didn't say that at all. That's where you're taking it, and that's okay for you to take it that way, because once again, we've had a mindset that causes us to fight against each other. But if you would listen to things that I've said, even today, but let alone that I've said consistently for years, even in years on social media, you will discover that, yeah, you know what, I think it's okay for a community of people who look like us to come together, and that be fine. I don't believe in segregation, which means other people can be along with it, but they gotta be about the same things that we're about, just like us. When we're in the projects and the slums and stuff like that, they don't just let black folk come into white neighborhoods just because. Like, they wanna see, like, if I were to, I've done this. When you move into, quote unquote, like using the social construct, a white country or a white neighborhood, if you will, people come and they knock on your door. They don't do that in black neighborhoods. We don't come and make sure everybody got peach cobbler and this and that for you and everybody. No, but they come and they check you out. You know why? They want to see what you're about. Right? If I go, I know this from experience. If I were to go to a Chinese neighborhood right now and try to get a building, they'll let me buy the building, but they might charge me 3 or 4 times as much. Now, somebody would say that that's this and that and it's discrimination, and I would agree with you to a certain degree. But they want to see if I'm about what I say, because they got a community and they got to uphold certain things. And so they're not just going to let anything in there. Right? So if somebody who by the social construct, because by the way, you know, if you knew what my mother looked like, and especially what her mother looked like, they definitely passed for white. And it's something that I dealt with to where people thought it was weird that I could come out of my mother, like, because people, you know, sometimes don't know what they're there, right? But at the same time, you know, just because she didn't look like me didn't mean she couldn't be my mom. But my mom sewed into me. If you sow into me and I sow into you, if you'll protect me and I'll protect you, if you have the same value and belief system and stuff like that that I have, if you'll protect your wife and child the way I will, and you'll protect my wife and child the way that I will, then okay, let's have a conversation. But I'm not going to get pinned into a fence where I think I'm going to be, you know, I have to make sure that people don't make sure that the language, like gentrification, colonization, that's part of life. Like, I'm keeping it 100 with you. Let's say somebody said, we're going to give you $100 million, it's yours, tax-free, do whatever you want with it, Kofi. Right? I'm going to make sure that we got some communities and stuff built up, but you best believe that also, too, if I go and I get a whole bunch of stuff, generational wealth for my family and people to have homes and things of that nature, oh, you best believe that some of them things that I get, they're going to look like us. Not just because I needed to be this thing to hate on everybody, but because if I show up, then we show up. And if we show up, then I show up. People are trying to get us to dismiss culture. That's why I said earlier when somebody's like, where should I start reading? I can tell you go ahead and read PTSS by Dr. Joy DeGroy. I can tell you to make sure that you're listening to anything by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. I can tell you to make sure that you catch up with the teachings of Frederick Douglass, of course, or listen to what Sojourner Truth had to say, Isabella, her real name. I can tell you, check out the history of Harriet Tubman. I can tell you, listen to what Olaudah Equiano, what he wrote out and stuff like that. I can tell you to look up Flavius Josephus, but if you don't know the culture and you don't live it, it's still not going to make sense. You said, what is my nationality? My nationality is sweet. My nationality is Alfred. My nationality is, the list goes on and on. My nationality is Yastel. My nationality is Cherokee. My nationality is Omekshi. If you don't like that, my nationality is definitely Taino. Some people would even try to say it's Arawak. My nationality is all over the place. Because it's not about where you come from, it's about who you come from. It wasn't until 1860, 1858, 1860, somewhere around there, the 14th Amendment, that was the first time that people started saying, oh, because I'm born somewhere physically, that means that's my nationality. That's not how nations have ever been built. You said we're all related? Okay. We're all related? Okay. Well, when people start making sure that, like, my family structure is in the family structure of humanity, that what my family does in our house is just as well represented and loved as what other people do in their family structures in their houses, that we can start being the human family we're supposed to be. But if it has to be that I have to give up my family and what my family does and what my mama does and what my people do to make sure that everybody else can be okay, then that's you saying that I'm less than human, because if one human dynamic can do what they do, then why can't one human dynamic do what we do? You said this world created racism and then scared we will return the wicked behavior. Yeah, and that's not part of my culture either. That's the problem. People hear me say stuff, and because I say we should gentrify and colonize, people go, so are you going to make us slaves? No, that's what some of y'all did. Here, key word, I said some of y'all. You said, but nobody bothers anyone. It's very quiet, peaceful, manifested on it. Okay. Yeah, definitely. If you want to reach out and send a DM, something like that. We could try and talk and see some things. Have you talk to my wife about some things in our project management team. we have the all talk. You said, what about Malcolm coming back from Africa, or what Farrakhan said to Elijah about all people? I'm sorry, are you talking about when Malcolm X came back and he said that he's drank from the same cups of white men? Is that what we're talking about? I want to be very careful, because it seems like we might be trying to represent one part of Malcolm, but I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about. So if you can just help me out. Okay, so we're talking about that. Let's not also forget the same Malcolm X that said that in the same exact time that he said that. He also said that when he talks to a white man who's a Muslim specifically over in Mecca, not a white man over here, right? And I'm not saying that all white people fall into this. He said that Elijah Muhammad taught him that all white people were evil. He said Elijah Muhammad taught him that white people couldn't enter into Mecca because of the color of their skin. He said he realized going over there that he's drank from the same cup, and it's called the same man brother, that it happened to be white, right? He made a point to say that, right? And I don't believe, that all white people are the devil, so I'm not doing that, right? However, allow me to also make sure that we represent him holistically, because the same Malcolm X that said that also said that the white man in America, right? The white man in America, social construct. He said that white man in America, when he says, I'm white, he says, I mean boss. He said when the person over there said I'm white, he's just talking about something that's part of who he is. He just happens to be white. So he's letting you know he's white, and therefore he has certain things in his culture that he's going to bring about, right? He said, but in America, the person who says he's white means boss. He also, at the same time, is asked specifically, because he gave a speech, right? There's a speech you can look up where he's talking about this. And during the speech, he also says that When people say, hey, well, what are you talking about guns? Because he used to say, hey, black folk, protect yourselves. If they're going to come shoot you, you should have a gun, right? Or protect your family. They said, well, Malcolm, what you going to do about the guns? He said the day that the day that y'all stop killing my people is the day that I'll tell my people to put down their guns. Right? Like, so Malcolm X didn't say, I went to Mecca and therefore everybody who's white now is cool. And matter of fact, Malcolm X has said before, not everybody that's black is cool. Matter of fact, the Bible tells you that not all Israel is Israel. So it's not my position to say that just because your skin looks close to mine or darker than mine or lighter than mine, but it's not white, supposedly, then it means, therefore, you're a great person. I don't think you're great just because you're black. I don't think you're evil just because you're white. Neither did Malcolm. Neither did Martin, by the way. People who like that other side too, right? Because truth is truth. We got to be contextually factual. So yeah, I don't have a problem. Yes, Malcolm X made a point to say, matter of fact, that same Malcolm X you're talking about, when he asked about white people, he said, well, whites can help us, but they can't join us. Why did he say that they can't join us yet? He said they can't join us because before there can be black-white unity, there must first be black unity. Which meant that he said we are not unified enough not only to be allowing somebody else to come into us, he said we're not unified enough yet to even be a help to anybody else. And that's part of our love. Our love is supposed to cause others to be lifted up, but we don't love each other. So if somebody comes into the black dynamic, they'll get just as messed up as we are right now because we haven't taken time out to adjust ourselves, to dedicate ourselves, to love ourselves, to honor ourselves. So how in the world you gonna love somebody else and you can't love you, like somebody else was saying? The more you love your society, the more the society loves you. But we don't have that together. So I'm not saying that white people can't live with us. We never agreed. I said anything like that. I'm not saying if you're a Gentile, if you're a Jew, if you're a Mormon, if you're a Christian, whatever, that you can't talk with us, that you can't be around us, da-da-da-da. What I'm saying is that we as a diaspora must and should do what every other diaspora does, which is take care of themselves and put their children's children in position that they would be able to experience wealth. Not just money, but wealth. Not just health, but wealth. Not just a word, but wealth. Not just government positions, but wealth. Not just land, but wealth. Not just food, but wealth. We need to be able to do those things in order to even be in a position to help somebody else out. We're not in position right now because we're still in the land of our captivity. Even mentally, we are captivated by others. You said the Panthers will not allow members, people segregate. Yeah, right. So I'm not asking for segregation, right? You said why do others get so worried about us excluding them, and their history removes us, right? Well, once again, the fear is that we're going to do the same thing. We don't, in our culture, we don't run off that. The problem is that what you're saying is what a lot of people think is black people. Right, because that's even a touchy subject within itself. But what people believe is black people are going to turn around and do what we've been taught. But what if some of us learned that before we were taught something outside of ourselves, there was something greater we already had, and so therefore a lot of us are saying, hey, what was taught outside of ourselves, we're going to actually make it a point. How you doing, Sister Shima? We're going to make it a point to leave that stuff to the side because it didn't serve us well and it didn't serve you well. That's why white women are into the feminism thing. And they're asking for the same people that they were killing our babies. They're saying, can you support us now? In the feminist movement. The feminist movement is not about black women. Margaret Sanger was not about black women. She helped to kill black women and Jewish women off. Because they're two different people. Jews are not Israelites, right? But Jews still were killed off. The same way they were being killed off, she's on that Hitler vibe. But then they say, hey, the feminist says, hey, turn around because now us in that position, we want you guys to help us. We were never in that position. Our wives had their babies taken from them by your women or whatever. And until you deal with that, until you tell the truth, we cannot come together because we're coming together based off of a lie. If you will admit that it's wrong, if you will help us, if you will do those things, then let's have a different conversation. But stop asking for me. Like, this is what our women are saying. This is why people don't like our love. Our women are saying, hey, Kofi, when you come up there, can you present us? Can you support us? Can you tell people, all these people that keep saying that we should just be feminists and stuff, can you tell them that we're tired of that? Can you tell them stop telling people that we're strong black women and that it's okay for us to need help? Can you tell them? That's what my women are telling me. That's what my culture is telling me. That's what my family is telling me. So I'm doing with my family. That's what my wife is telling me. I hear you, Minister Terry. Yeah, you know, like people don't want to have that conversation, right? People don't want to have that conversation, right? But the reality is like we're not like you got to come out of that mindset. A lot of us need to heal. All of us were lied to. Thanks for the love, Brother Cliff. All of us, and for everybody for your love, appreciate it. All of us had to be lied to in order for segregation, in order for racism, in order for segregation, classism, schisms of any kind. All of us had to be mistrained. All of us had to be miseducated. So white people don't mind exclusion or discrimination as long as it's not against them. Yeah, and you know what? I've started to see, if I'll be honest with you, I've seen a lot of people who aren't white who will say, hey, if you hear a black person that says, I hate all white people, they'll actually say, and I don't think that you should hate all white people. I'm making that a point to say again. But there are people who said that, like, I comprehend it, I get it. If everything you've ever looked at in your life was messed up by somebody who looks like me, then maybe, it's all right for that to be your first opinion. And I'm not saying we should teach that. But real talk is that there's some stuff that's true in it. And when we say just ignore it or start saying, I don't see color, we get back into the doctrine of discovery that they used to be able to take land from people that were there and say they could discover land that people were on because all you said was, I don't see the people. That's what the doctrine of discovery said. It said if you're not a white Christian male, when we come to your country, we have the right to take it because you don't exist. But people are still out here saying, I don't see color. Hey, how you doing, Eugene? I'm doing all right. Right, that's why I don't see color. It infuriates a lot of people. It's the same doctrine that they use for Christopher Columbus to come and get people. The same doctrine that they use for the Crusades. The doctrine of discovery, that's what it is. If you're not a white Christian male, we coming for you. When you say you don't see color, you feed into the same thing, right? So in our family structure, it should be okay to love ourselves. Look, as much as everybody wants to say we're all human beings, I promise you that when I see a young black boy and he sees me, I know this because I meet quite a few of them as I travel, right? When I see a young black boy and he sees me and we have a conversation, our conversation is different than every other conversation he has. When we look at each other and I see him try to make a decision and he looks at somebody and he's looking around to see how does this white family view me, how does this black family view me, how does my family view me, that's an experience that I know of because we grew up similar in that. And yes, even when I see people who want to go here, mixed race babies, right? My mother could pass, my grandmother could pass. I come from a mother and a father that was dark, a mother that was extremely light, and even would call herself white sometimes, right? And I had her family that didn't like my father's family, and they didn't like the person they were getting married to because of the color of their skin. And I grew up in that. My brother and sister, when you look at them, you might say they look mixed race, even though I think they look black, but you could say they look mixed race, whatever that means, right? But when you look at me, we don't look the same, right? Or so when you see that, I can have a conversation with them that somebody who doesn't know what that is can't. I can see a look on their face and give them a look back that speaks volumes to them that somebody can't, right? I know what it is to be literally the black sheep of my family, to where nobody was looking at him and nobody liked each other. My till this day in my family, my presence is a reminder of what happened. When my father's side of the family thought he was going outside, and my mother's side was thinking he was doing. I'm telling you, as somebody who had the experience. I'm telling you, somebody who was a token, who was tired, who wanted to be white, legit. My wife and I have had this conversation. We grew up, kind of sort of, we grew up in different places, but we went to high school, same area of the country. And we, at that point, grew up wishing we could be white and thinking something was wrong with us because I wanted to be able to hang out with the thugs, but I also wanted to go skateboarding. And when I wanted to go skateboarding, the thugs hated me. But when I wanted to hang out with the thugs, the skateboarders hated me. And by the way, I'm using the term thugs, if you notice, because I got to use it for black folk. But the reality is the skateboarders would steal more stuff than the thugs would. But they were thugs because they were black and because their pants were too low. Even though the skaters, they sagged their pants too. And they actually wore stuff like chains, and they actually had sharp objects, and they would carry around knives and pull them out, even in school and stuff. Let one of the thugs have a knife, though. Right? I'm telling you, I come from a lot of this stuff. I come from being mixed with a whole bunch of things culturally. I know what it is to be mixed with the Ottoman Empire, right? And have Turkish stuff in your blood and trying to figure out what's going on with that and have to reconcile with the Turkish side that owned the black side or the Cherokee side that owned the black side, because we don't like to talk about that either. On that Trail of Tears, I had my Cherokee side who was being displaced and was sad and had to walk all those miles across half the country, but I also had to have my slave side who was underneath them and had to go under too. So when you're talking to me, a lot of people just make the assumption, we see what he's dressed like, we hear what he sounds like, we know who he is. Y'all don't know. But I have a conversation, I'm having a conversation culturally. I know what it is to talk about Yashta because I've been there, done that. Like, physically, spiritually, emotionally, etc. I've been there, done that. I know what it is to look at a scroll in Africa, written in ancient Avda or ancient Hebrew writing. So when I talk about that, I'm not telling you something that I heard about. I'm telling you something that I experienced, that I started looking for, that I started sewing into. A lot of people saving up money so they can go to the club. I was saving up money so I can go back home and start doing some research. And didn't just stay there for a couple days either. You know, I know what it is. When I say I'm Mali, I know what Mali is. When I'm saying Ashwi, I know what Shwi is. When I say I'm Ashanti Shwi, I know what that is. If I say Akwa Aba, I know what it is to say Etesen. I know how to say Mimini Kofi Ninevra Kukutana Nueve. I know what it is to say Kusabiri, Kusikaliza. I know what that is. I know, right? Just like somebody else would know what it is to say Ekut, right? Comme toi. I know what that is. I know what cultural stuff is, right? That's what I'm saying. Culture comes first. And knowing it is important. To know something means to become intimate with it. We're not intimate with our culture and our community. You never have been. Your child, like I just found out, right, in Houston, I just found out, and traveling and stuff, and in Memphis too, I just found out that because we do homeschooling, so I don't know these days and stuff, but apparently everybody about to start going to school, right? Same to you, Sister Carrie. Said, do I know about Atlanta Creoles? I mean, I don't know them per se, but I mean, I know about Creole. You know, Creole has slight differences and variations, but it's kind of the same, right? But I know what I'm saying overall is I know about these different things, but I didn't, like, for example, so I was saying Houston and Memphis. I had to find out that these children, these babies about to go to school. I was used to, when I was in school in America or whatever, and at the end of it, you go to after Memorial Day is when everything starts happening. But these babies get ready to go to school. And so because I homeschool, I'm not in the culture of school. And I was talking to these babies about school. And I'm talking about babies, you know, that are sophomores in college, all the way down to, I think the youngest that the youngest that I had some meaningful conversation with was about 10-year-old boy, right? So I told you like a 10-year-old boy, 12-year-old girl, 15-year-old girl, 15-year-old boy in high school. Like, I've talked to quite a few people as we've been traveling, right? And I was telling them things, and I was telling them things I say on here, but I was telling them things that they don't know. They have no clue about themselves. They have no clue about themselves, and even about how school works. So I was talking to one about a degree. I was like, do you want a degree of knowledge? Because she's talking about I'm going there and going for business and stuff for school. I said, do you want a degree of knowledge? Or do you want the whole thing? Because I was telling her basic stuff in business. And she's going to get a business, right? She's going to 4 years business degree. She's the one paying for it because she's the one, you know, she got to basically doing some stuff that got her a scholarship. So she's already successfully paid for her schooling. And yet, she doesn't know a whole bunch of stuff. I said, you need to ask teachers about this. You need to ask teachers about that, right? But a lot of us don't know those things. Some of the most simple things, like, do you know what's going to happen? Like, you know that you're talking about owning this type of business, starting this type of business. I was like, number one, What is the type of business? Number two, get together, get a website, get something like that. Number three, you got somebody that can advertise you. I'll put your stuff out there for you. We'll put it on the website. Number four, like, are you aware of even having your EIN? You can get your EIN now, and you can have it to where you set it up to where you're gonna get tax breaks now. You can start doing that now. Not taught any of that in school because they're not teaching us how to succeed. But in a culture to where somebody has her interests in mind, in a society where somebody says, I see something in you that I know I wasn't taught either, guess what? I'm gonna say, hey, you need to ask about this. You need to learn about this. You need to grow into this. That's why it's important that you come to people that are like-minded, like somebody else. I'm not mad at it. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's how stuff works. Families take care of each other. And like I'm saying, your family or our love is the greatest threat. When we talk about family structure, our love is the greatest threat to society, right? The reason why, you can be mad about it, but the reason why a young white boy is gonna get more gain from Donald Trump than a young black boy is because the young white boy that's gonna be around Trump is somebody that he identifies with. And then on top of that, let that young white boy have some money, he identifies with them more. And so then he gonna hang around with that little young white boy, that young white boy's parents, and then he gonna learn the stuff seeing them do it, right? Because it's a family dynamic. It's what's supposed to happen. It's what's supposed to happen, right? And by the way, it's called capitalism. Capitalism is a competition. If you're competitive, if you don't want other people to win. So they're trying to get as much money and land and everything else as possible. Why would they want you to get some? Of course it's competitive. When you realize that, then you don't have a problem with saying, okay, I'm gonna take care of me and mine. I'm sorry, Rhonda, you said being raised in the South, our cousins from up north would laugh at us because we worked in the garden, didn't have showers in the house. You said you went to visit them and they lived behind a fence, very unclean walking areas and police everywhere. But we're all oppressed, yeah, and we all have different things we're going through. They had police, you had the KKK, also policemen, yeah. And we gotta stop coming against each other. It's our love. See, we were taught fight each other rather than realize we have a very similar experience. Talk about succeeded. Yeah. You know, I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch these comments. Give me a second, y'all. That no matter the ripples of such starch, realities of things, i.e. Jim Crow, Willie Lynch, there's always lack of compassion. That our realities shape our own narrative. Great, wonderful time for opportunity. Yeah, our reality. I like the fact that you said our realities, because we think that there's a difference. Well, there is a difference between what you've seen and what reality is, but what you've seen is part of reality. But the reality is bigger than what it is, and a lot of us don't want to go there. A lot of us don't want to go there, therefore we don't want to grow there. Like, you got to grow in the presence of thine enemies. But you want to grow in where it's comfortable. And in case you missed that, I just gave you a word right there. I just gave you something that'll bless you, that'll keep your family, that'll help you to look at things differently. A lot of us, we want to do what? A lot of us are in a position to where we think that we are supposed to be, a lot of us are in a position to where we believe that we are supposed to be in complete comfort. Just make me comfortable. That's it, right? But you're supposed to be in the presence of thine enemies, which means that you got to work something out in the presence of enemies, which means that you got to realize that there's enemies. It's really weird that you'll say that the enemy is the enemy, but you won't look to the exterior to see that you got some enemies around here. Right? You got some enemies out there. You said, I've been told to say uncomfortable. At first I didn't understand that. Yeah, you know, like, if you're at war, it's not comfortable. Trying to do that now, growing in the presence of the enemies. Yeah, it's not supposed to be comfortable out here. It's not kumbaya out here all day, every day. Right? It's not like, I know that you think that what I'm saying, it doesn't make sense. And I'm here to tell you that there's a such thing as a white church and a black church. I know you don't think there is, but there is. Both of them saying that God is not respecter of person. If he did it for you, he'll do it for me, and all this stuff. Going to a black church and a white church. You know, there's a such thing as a light-skinned church and a dark-skinned church. They don't put it on the big sign out. How you doing, Wormer, man? Right? I'm gonna have to call you something different too, because I feel every time I say it, I'm dismissive of you, if you don't mind, right? I'm gonna have to come up with a nickname or something. But you know, there's a difference between a white church and a black church, a light-skinned church and a dark-skinned church. There's a difference between a church that's mostly sisters and a church that has a mix of 50-50 brothers and sisters. There's a difference between them. Oh yeah, right? And because we don't want to acknowledge it, there's an enemy, there's a vibe, there's a spirit. That thing is all over the place. It's division that's more important than it, right? But it makes its way through. That division is making its way through the vision. It's cutting through the vision. So you can't see clearly because your culture is divided. And your culture is divided in sections. There's a such thing as a rich church and a poor church. Mm-hmm. It's in your culture all over the place. It really is not your culture. It's seeped in. So that's why you have a zeal of Elohim. Romans chapter 10, verse 2. You have a zeal for him, but it's not according to knowledge. It's not according to intimacy. Because the church takes, the fact that it's the word church, and the word church comes from circus, but the fact that it's a word that means something different than the kingdom should alarm you. But the fact that you've been so indoctrinated it doesn't alarm you is scary. It is scary that we have been so indoctrinated that we are not alarmed when we hear church. Something in you, when you hear a church, like I'll go into a church because I'll be prayed up and I realize wherever my feet tread is there. And sometimes I'll bring people to protect me. Because when I go into churches, people don't like anything that I'm about to say, and I realize it. Until you grew up in the light-skinned church. It sure did the bullying and disrespect, yeah. I'm telling you, if you hear the word church, you should be offended. You should be, well, I won't even say offended, right? Because offense is a little too strong. But you should definitely be afraid. Something in you should say, hey, okay, right? But something in you should say, okay, like we ain't in Kansas no more, Toto. Like, it's very weird that people don't think about that there's a church culture, but the church culture says and demands that one church be separated from another. It's very weird. I don't think people recognize that. That church culture demands. We don't go over to y'all because y'all are Baptists like we are. Baptists are better than Methodists. But we don't go over and mess with y'all Kojic people because, you know, Methodists, we got the proper methodology. But we don't go anything because we're the church of God in Christ. So we worship like nobody else does. So we can't mess around with y'all. But we can't mess around with y'all because we free will are Baptist church. Therefore, we believe that. Like, it's in the culture. It's mandated. It's written in the bylaws that you should separate from each other. Why would you want to go there looking for connectivity? Why would you find a lifestyle? Why would you find a community in something that legit says that you must be cut off from each other? I'm not saying, see, it would make sense if you said, hey, everybody that goes to church will just be a nation, we'll live together. But if I say evangelical, y'all know evangelical is different than if I say Southern Baptist. Y'all already know, right? If I tell you we're gonna go to if I say we're gonna go to a charismatic church, y'all know that charismatic means something different than if I say we go into a Methodist church. If I say we go into a Roman Catholic church, you know that's gonna be different than if I say, hey, we're gonna go to a Episcopalian church, even though it's a slight difference, but it's difference. You said you went on Saturday when you were small, okay? But what I'm saying is, like, the place, like, we'll have all the arguments and stuff, but y'all supposed to all be one church. That's what y'all say, but why y'all have 7,000 churches? Why is it that a lot of us grew up on streets where we saw, you know, or grew up around streets at least, where we could see 15 churches on one street and none of them worship together? Why is it, watch this, why is it that a lot of us today drive past churches and when we see the church, it ain't gonna be too soon before we see a liquor store, sometimes right across the street or in the same corner? See, our love is supposed to be something that brings us together. We've never, it's so weird that we went to church. I didn't grow up in church, right? But a lot of y'all who grew up in church, y'all tell me that our people went to church for years and years and years, and not one time did the church say we should come together and live together. They were just more concerned about you coming, giving money, and being there for a Sunday for a couple hours, or Saturday, and maybe showing up for Wednesday or Thursday Bible study and all that stuff. But they didn't live together, not one time. Where's your community at? You said where you grew up, the churches to this day worship together. Okay, that's great. So once again, that's one small thing out of what I said, and I'm glad you're defending it, because that's what a lot of us will do. We grew up and we worship together and this and that, and you should, right? So now the next step, and I'm not saying coming against you, I'm just trying to say, like, the next step to that is what? Why don't people live together? And that's the church. Because they say the church is in you. Even though the word church doesn't mean what we think it means, it was added into the Bible later. Right? Yeah, the churches were the only buildings allowed. Right? But we got to say to ourselves, like, why is that? Like, I'm in Texas now. I was in Memphis before. I was in Philly before. I was in North Carolina. We're going to keep going across and then come right back across the country and stuff on this trip we're on. And all the stuff that we're doing, guess what? Like, you can say, like, yeah, the churches, we worship together and this and that or whatever. Where is the community? Where is the food? Once again, our love, our action. By this will men know that you are my disciples. Our love is the greatest weapon against the system. The word world means system. Where is the action? Where is the fruit of our labor? We came and we worshiped and we sat in God's face. We were in God's face. God give us. God grant us. God help us. God allow us. God allow us to be blessed and all these different things or whatever. After all these years, where's the church community? Yeah, I hear you, Nate. That's part of it too, right? Like, we're in all these years, where's the food? Bare minimum. If you go to church and you tithing or whatever, especially some of y'all that want to do only if you tithing thing, fine, tithing, offering, but I would just say, period, if you're a regular member, you should at least have some food coming to you. I've seen monuments, and I know not every church has it, but I'm saying, yo, at some point, where's the camaraderie? People act like everybody in the church is your confidant. That's why I say, hey, there's a confidant, constituent, and comrade for those of y'all that remember that, right? But they want to act like everybody's your confidant. Where the food at? All right, you be safe out there. I'm not saying it right. Is it Minaxina? I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Right? But where the food at? Ruth met Boaz and saw what Boaz was because Boaz was giving food out. Her husband was in his work. Right? Her husband was in his work. Once again, her husband was in his work. Her husband was in his work. Husbands find a wife. Husbands should be in their work before they have a wife. The husband should be pre-qualified to be husbands, and wives should be pre-qualified to be wives. Where is that at? Like, where's the society? Why is it that in churches you have singles ministry, which basically are just ways to teach people how to date, but in the Bible it never tells you to date? Right? Even being non-denominational. Have you ever thought about the fact that that's weird? Because the denominator is the foundation. If I were to give you a math problem, and if I were to say 1 over 1 plus 1 over 1 equals 2 over 1, right? Or if I say 1 plus 1 equals 2, the only reason is because it says 1 over 1 plus 1 over 1 equals 2 over 1. If I were to tell you 1 plus 1 equals 2, but it was 1 over 1 plus 2 over 4 equals, 1 over 1 plus 1 over 4 equals 2 over 10, it wouldn't make sense. Because the denominator, numerator, denominator, the denomination is supposed to be the same. The problem is our denomination is not based off of the love of Yah. It's not. The problem is that that's not our goal, is to have the same denomination or the same denominator. Who is the denominator? The denominator is Yahshua. The denominator is Yahweh. The denominator is Ravak HaKadosh, Elacham. But we're arguing over what? Denomination. Because we've made the denomination, the Baptist, the Methodist, the Episcopalian, the not having a denominator, like 1 over 0 is not a great thing either. Because 1 over 0 has no value. It's not real. I'm not trying to come against people. I'm just trying to get us to think. Like we don't think in our culture. It's not our love. It's not our action. It's not the action of the Most High. The Most High says, I am the denominator. I don't care. Well, he cares what's above it too. But what I'm saying is in this context, the value of the numerator only matters if the denominator is the same. I can't give you if I say 1 + 1 = 2, denominator has to be the same. They all got to be the same number or they're not worth it. It means it has no value. It can't be 1/0 plus 1/1 equals 2/7. The denominator is the key. The unseen is the key. You don't even write it out. It's the unseen, but you know that the unseen is what is going to make things add up. It's the unseen. Problem is, though, is that we're not even talking about the unseen anymore. You said your denominator is God? Yeah, I get it, because God is a Germanic deity. And so a lot of people have heard God, just like a lot of people talk about a firmament. A firmament is a Greek God. Or just like a lot of people will talk about Christianity, even though Christianos was something written in later, and at the time of the Bible, if anybody, actually, matter of fact, there was no such thing as Christianos at the time of the Bible, but a couple hundred years later, if people heard you say Christianos, they felt sad for you because they knew you didn't live up to what you were supposed to. So we repeat a lot of different things, and that's why we try to say Old Testament, New Testament. We even get to Nicolaitan doctrine, which a lot of people don't even know what that is, but you're warned about it twice in Revelation chapter 2. Right? To where they're coming up with stuff with the Old Testament, New Testament. That's stuff that we're not supposed to deal with. We're literally told in Revelation chapter 2 twice, don't deal with it. We're literally told not to deal with things that are against Israel once. And when it says Balaam doctrine, Revelation chapter 2. Matter of fact, the Third Assembly is told specifically about both of them, Balaam doctrine and about Nicolaitan doctrine. And earlier in chapter 2, the Most High says, I hate Nicolaitans. Hate means detest. Detest. It means literally anything that tries to test us coming out of that doctrine. You should have a community. You should have a context. You should have something that shapes you to keep you away from it. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. Before that, talks about how that people say it doesn't matter about Israel, stuff like that. Revelation 2:9 literally says that, look, I know your tribulation, I know your patience, right? And I know that you think you're poor, but really you are rich. And I know that there are people that say that you are not who you say you are. Revelation chapter 3, verse 7, going on there, it says what? It says that, look, I am the one that's holy, I'm the one that's true, and I'm the one that has the key of David, or what we call David. Revelation chapter 3, verse 8 says that he opens doors that no man can shut, shuts doors that no man can open. What does he mean? Who is that door for? Revelation chapter 3, verse 9, it literally says that, Revelation chapter 3, verse 9, he says, so look, I know that you guys have been told, once again, that you're not Hebrew, but really you are. And I know that there's going to be people that come against you, but they're the synagogue of the Satan, right? And he even goes to the point of saying that that's what we started talking about today, and talking about our love is the greatest enemy, right? Our family structure is the greatest enemy. Why? Because it says that I'm going to show our people are going to come and start to worship at your feet. Not worship you, but worship at your feet. Worshiping, but at your feet means they're going to learn from you. And why are they coming to learn from you and to worship in your presence? Is because that they're going to realize that he has always loved us. Right there in there. Then go to Revelation chapter 7 that I've mentioned a few times today too. Revelation chapter 7. Right there it says, hey, before destruction comes to the earth, Israel must be sealed. And then everybody else is going to be like-minded, is grafted into that same tree. And then we can start having a conversation about Revelation 12, Revelation 13, the beast, Revelation 14, 15, Revelation 15, the Song of Moses. So people say the Old Testament doesn't work, but you don't even know what Revelation 15 actually says if you don't know the Song of Moses. But a lot of people don't even know the Ode to Moses. Don't even know, go to Deuteronomy 31 and start reading. Have no clue what that even means because we're not in culture. We have no clue. But we're out here talking about what we're going to do as a people. What the Bible keeps telling you over and over again. Revelation 12 that I mentioned, it literally is talking about Israel, how she is to separate herself and prepare herself for the new Jerusalem that's coming. Got to separate. Grand Rising, for real. Got to separate. Right there. I didn't say got to segregate, but you got to separate. And that's the problem. People hear me say similar terminology, and because of the culture that you're in, right? Because of the culture that we're in, we do something different with it. We hear a word like kingdom. Kingdoms, kings dominate, kings have dominion, that dominion expands. You call it colonization. You're into democracy, which by the way is a kingdom anyways, if you know what democracy means. And you're into a false democracy because if you look up in your Constitution, there's no such thing in the Constitution as democracy. The cup looks little. Yeah, it is. I'm 6'5½", but it's a small cup. I have for some tea. You know, but we don't recognize that. We don't realize what's going on. We're not having an educated conversation, right? We're not having an educated conversation on these things anymore. Why? Because we have been educed or educated by somebody who took out the mind but kept the body. You're not in your grandmama used to say something like this to you, probably, depending on where you come from. Or your mama might even said it too. Or your daddy might have said it like, boy, girl, you ain't in your right mind. Not in your right brain, in your right mind, because your mind is different than your brain. Your mind is different than your brain. Your brain helps the body to function. Your mind is the spirit. Your psyche or your psyche, Psyche in the Greek, that's your soul. You are 3 in 1. But it's not your soul anymore. We've sold our soul. We've signed our soul documents. Right? We signed our soul away over and over and over and over again. When you go to the hospital, you're going to sign your soul over. You're going to sign your body over. Y'all get birth certificates. I mean, it's not birth certificates, well, that's part of it, but driver's license. And when you get your driver's license, you say, please donate my body. Please donate my pineal gland. Please donate my heart. And then you get in an accident and your family's like, why won't you? It seems like they didn't even try to save him or her. Well, they said that we can take their body parts. So, I mean, why would we try to save that? That's why you should be careful if you sign documentation about being famous, where people can use your image and likeness forever and ever and a day for in perpetuity throughout the universe. Like, that's what people sign when they're making a movie. You got to make a decision. If you're going to make a movie, I'm not saying don't make a movie. You called to be a movie star, be a movie star. Just recognize when you sign a document, that's what you're signing up for. And you might get to a place to where you don't have to do it because they think you're perfect for the role, but that normally ain't going to work until you made about 4 or 5 movies, big time money, and then you can start demanding some things like that, like I'm not going to let you use my likeness in perpetuity. But they still, like, if they're going to pay you, if the studio going to pay you, you know, what they pay Will Smith or what they pay Brad Pitt or what they pay, I don't know, whoever you want to use, right? Whoever the guy is from Guardians of the Galaxy and whatever his name is and all that, like, if you're going to get paid on that level, then realize, like, you're going to sign your soul. And people say the money is a powerful thing. That's how their stuff works. Give up who you are. Stop loving yourself, and we will use you as we see fit. Except making unrighteous covenants and not honoring covenant with Yahweh Elohim. Right? So you got to make a decision. Choose ye this day. Am I going to continue to do the stuff that sells my soul? It's about Jesus. Well, you know Jesus means half man, half Zeus. Well, by no other name I know. No, time out. Don't get emotional with me for a second. Just roll. Like, it's okay to be emotional, but don't let your emotions be out of pocket. Like, do you know that Jesus' name means half man, half Zeus? It doesn't matter. It was good enough for my grandmama. Look, stay with me for a second. You see what I'm saying? Our love for our culture and our community is the greatest weapon. They got you shook, right? Even the world knows that there ain't no such thing as halfway crooks, right? But they got you shook, trying to be halfway what the Bible says and halfway in the world. Even the world says ain't no such thing as halfway crooks, right? Scared to death and scared to look. They shook. They got you out here shook. You shaking. You hokey pokey. Hokey pokey is you got your left foot in and your left foot out. Like, which one are you? I wish I knew if you was hot or cold. That's something else in Revelation chapter 3, right? The last assembly. I wish I knew if you was hot or cold. It'd be easier to deal with you, Yah says. But Yah says, I can't even really deal with you. Like, it makes me so sick dealing with you. You sicken me. I got to throw you up. Uh-oh. You sicken me. Somebody going to get mad. Somebody going to try and kick us off, right? But you sicken me is what he said. I didn't say it. Well, you know, if I don't do this, you know, they might try to take my house away, this and that or whatever. Well, if you can't sell everything that you have and follow me, I know you follow all the law, this and that, but you can't even sell everything that you have. Are you willing to sell everything that you have? Are you scared? All I fear is God, for those who say God, brother. All I fear is God. I don't fear any man but God. Hallelujah. I fear God only. Elohim says, hey, if you fear me, if you respect me, because that's really what fear means. If you respect me, I don't need you to be afraid of me. I need you to respect me. Show me my respect. Right? People talking about tithing money and all this stuff and getting arguments about tithing money. He said, tithe me my time. He said, run me my time. Right? Not run me them tithes, run me my time. 2 hours, 24 minutes every day. 2 hours and 12 minutes every day. Where my time at? 2 hours and 12 minutes every day. Where my time at? Where my prayers at? Where my books at? Where my food at? Well, you know, he was talking about food with tithes anyway. Fine, where my food at? Why do people who are called by my name, why are they out there suffering? Because the way I set up my system, I once was young and now I'm old and I've never seen the righteous forsaken nor their seed begging bread. Why you got my people out here starving? They supposed to be the same as you. Exactly, double-minded. A double-minded man or a double-minded woman is unstable in all their ways. Not some, in all. Everything you do is unstable. I ain't say it. That's what I said. People say, y'all say this is yours. Y'all believe it, ride on King Jesus and all this stuff. Okay, fine. That's what he said up in here. He told you 6 things he was looking for you to get into heaven. Answer me this. How often do you do these 6 things? This is what he said. Thank you, Minister Tamara. Right? Thank you, everybody, for the love. Appreciate it. This is what he said. I ain't say this. All right? I didn't say this. I'm telling you what he said. Who you say is King Jesus. All right. He said, these are 6 things I'm looking for. He said, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was naked, you gave me some clothes, right? When I was sick, you came to the hospital to see about me or at least checked in on me every once in a while, right? When I was in prison, you came to check me out, right? And make sure I'm okay. And then he said also, hey, also too, when I was a stranger, when I'm not even from here, when I'm not even an Israelite, if I come to the Most High and I'm looking for him, will you help me out? Even the stranger. That's why a lot of our Hebrew Israelite brethren don't want to use part of this Bible either, is because that they have to admit that even King Solomon prayed over the stranger and said, if somebody who's not even one of us comes into the knowledge of who you are, we're supposed to help you out too. No problem, Sister Tracy. Right? Even a person that ain't from where you from. That's why I don't get in a conversation when people try to, well, you know, all white people this, all that. No, they're not. And even if they are, what if some of them start realizing the truth? Am I supposed to say don't take care of them? Because if that's the case, Yahshua tells me, right, who y'all call Jesus, y'all Jesus, in this Bible that y'all say y'all read, right, this King James and all that stuff, so whatever, right? But in this same Bible, y'all tell us we're supposed to read. He says straight up, if you don't do it to the least of these, my brethren, you think of them as the least. But they trying to come into the knowledge. If you won't do it to the least of them, he said you won't do it to me. So you praise and worship and honor. That's the family structure. And our love is the greatest thing. See, watch this. If kingdoms expand, if colonization happens, if gentrification happens, if kingdoms expand, then families expand too. Salah. Right? Man, I wish I had all day to really do this the way I want to, right? If kingdoms expand, how you doing, Brother Teacher? If kingdoms expand, then families expand too. So if your whole thing is, it has to be the way that I see it and that's it, and you're not willing to realize that your ways are not his ways, nor your thoughts his thoughts. As high as the heavens are from the earth are his ways from your ways and your thoughts from his thoughts. And he sends down, the same way he sends down rain and snow and everything to cleanse the earth is the same way that he sends down his word. And you sitting up here talking about that you don't want to support parts of it, then guess what? You dirty. Because the water, and whether it's frozen or liquefied, if it's hot, cold, whatever, it's here to cleanse you. But you won't receive the manna that's raining down from heaven. You won't receive it. They're trying to figure out why you malnourished in the spirit. Of course you're malnourished in the spirit. Of course you are. I didn't say this stuff. This is what y'all say is the standard. This is my standard too. I live underneath standards. That's why I understand. I live underneath the standard. I stay covered by the standard. The standard has to be above you. Problem is some of y'all got so high-minded, y'all think y'all higher than the flagpole and telling everybody from here talking about, hey, y'all down there, make sure that you worship my standard. I look up to the standard. You hear what I'm saying? Like, people get so twisted in this. A standard, literally a flag. A flag is a standard. A flag waves above you. That's why it's a standard. You stand underneath it. That's why you understand. But we got people now, you need to overstand. If you overstand, then what is your standard? You have to become the standard. See, I'm the standard. I'm the God. All these different things. That's why people messed up. Your family structure is messed up because you're taking on something that's not our standard. The standard for us and our family is in the beginning, by the shuts, in beginning. That's the standard. If you don't know that, that's the first sentence of your Bible. If you don't know what that means and don't even know how to interpret it correctly because you don't know how to break down the characters, you can't comprehend this book. You can't be his disciple. How you gonna carry his cross and you don't even know what Tav means, which is the last character? Psalm 119, do some research. Psalm 119, start at verse 187, 189. Right where it says Tav, start reading there. That's the standard. But you don't know the standard. So how you gonna talk about the cross? You've heard all these sermons on the cross, and not one time have you ever known what Tav means. You don't even know what Barashat means, which is the end. The Tav is at the end of that word. That's what the book of Genesis is actually called. How do you understand or stand under a standard? How do you get under a standard that covers you if you don't even know the culture? Aman, under the banner of Yahweh, right? So everybody's always, I'm overstanding. If you're overstanding, it means you think you're greater than the standard. That's your problem. And while you're thinking you're better than the standard for families, other people, even when they are terrible and doing all types of stuff, guess what? They'll represent this family structure more than you will. There is not a call out here by white women. Even though they'll do feminism and all that stuff, guess what? The same feminist still does the same thing she was doing back then, right? When she still, as much as she hates the fact that her husband doing this, that, whatever, she still says, oh, our family structure, we need husbands. In your dynamic, you say, man, black men ain't sh. And by the way, we're about to lose you guys on YouTube. So those that are on YouTube, feel free to come over and join us on TikTok. Thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate it. If you want a little bit more, we'll be on TikTok for a little bit more. I just don't have the battery life and I don't have anywhere out here to plug into. So, yeah. But thank you for being on. We appreciate you.